Women don't leave marriages on a whim. They don't leave marriages by impulse. When they leave that marriage, you better bet your bottom dollar it was well thought out. They're probably well over it. They have a plan because that's what women do. Especially when you married to like a seemingly like good guy, like one that don't really do things wrong, or don't really give you a quote unquote like a reason to leave, even when they give you reasons to leave, if that makes sense.
We've all heard it a million times. When a woman is out, she's out. When she gives up, she's done. And they don't just leave the bad ones, they leave the good ones. I want to have this conversation today about why that happens. Why are women leaving marriages at a 70% clip? I'll talk about a little bit of details in that here coming up. And is it just a marriage thing? What we find out, a little bit of a spoiler alert here, women are always the ones to be the more likely to end a relationship, marriage or not. And I'm going to show you here in just a couple of minutes about why she will leave you if the relationship ends. There's a very high chance that it will be her, not you. So let's have a look at that real quick. And we're going to go through some research, and then I'm going to circle back after that and talk a little bit of context as we go. So let me switch over here. This is a research review article that I found not too long ago. I've had it in my library and looked at it a little bit here and there until more recently I went through the whole thing. This thing is nearly 65 pages long. Now, many of those pages are the references at the end. It is a great resource. I will leave a link for you to get it from its original source so that you can refer to it. And one of the great things is there's so much cited in here that if you have a topic that you're interested in, a lot of these articles you can get for yourself that are in here, and you can kind of dive in a little bit deeper as well. But as I mentioned, this is a very long article. Romantic relationships matter more to men than to women. So a couple of things that we're going to cover here is men. What we will find out is men are in fact more romantic, why they're more committed to staying in a relationship, and a couple of other topics. So this was done by researchers, authors from Germany, the United States, and the Netherlands. It is a huge research review, including studies over more than the past 20 years, maybe 25 years or even more. It's one of the reasons I like it. It's so comprehensive. So let's have a look at their abstract. And what they say is that they were looking at principles and insights based on interdisciplinary literature. And they came up with 4 propositions, they call them. The first, that men expect to obtain greater benefits from a relationship, from having a romantic partner. And in fact, they do benefit more when it comes to physical and mental health. They also, one of the things that they mentioned here that they were interested in or proposed is that men are less likely to initiate breakups. So they give references to other literature in that regard, and that men suffer more from relationships when they end, of course, marriage included. So as I mentioned, this is very long. I've highlighted what I want to cover. I obviously cannot go over everything. I will say, by the way, if you do download this, it is actually a pretty easy read. You don't have to know a lot or, be an academic. So, some articles, especially the research type, can be pretty tough to get through. This is a really easy read. So do yourself a favor. If you are interested, go ahead and download it. I highly recommend it. But let's come down here to one of the reasons that all of this kind of intersects is that men learn to not disclose with other people, and that men are less likely than women to disclose personal matters to other people, including their friends. And as I was going through this, I thought to myself, okay, when I'm with one or two of my buddies, what do we talk about? A lot of times it's work. I'll be hanging out with somebody that I work with. We'll be talking about, hey, I'm thinking about getting this car, or I'd like to do this improvement in my condo. We will talk about maybe sports if we're both, we have a mutual interest, but maybe relationships, but certainly not wives. That topic is almost extremely off topic. And if it does involve relationships outside of a marriage, for example, dating relationships, things like that, it's usually very superficial. So we have less knowledge about our male friends' attitudes and feelings. And I would say it's not just limited, of course, to this. There's other things. I have male friends that or maybe acquaintances, guys that I don't know extremely well, but, know well enough from work, for example, some neighbors here in the community. I have no idea what their political beliefs are. I have no idea about their family history. Those are just things that guys don't talk about. So we disclose less. And women tend to express more sadness than men, which, as you can imagine, that comes from a 2000 study. So yeah, that one's over 25 years ago. As you can imagine, women expressing more sadness than men, of course, that's where the empathy and the sympathy come in. So this section right here is about men not disclosing. Social norms favor self-disclosure more for women than for men, right? So it's it's a social thing. It's not just guys. I think also women. Actually, let me say that here for just a moment, because that's coming up. But socially, the norms are that men will not disclose as much, and women experience an equal amount of negative emotions in their daily lives, which I think was interesting because men and women are apparently experiencing the same amount or levels of negative emotions in our daily lives. Guys just don't talk about it. And let me scroll down because I think that one that I was thinking of is coming up. Hey, Editor Todd here. This is the part that I accidentally skipped that I had just mentioned, and I, for some reason, skipped right past it. Both men and women also tend to perceive emotionality as an undesirable trait for men, but a desirable trait for women. So this totally contradicts what men are being told to be the new masculine, whatever they're trying to do to redefine that these days. But both men and women perceive it as less desirable for men to be emotional. So I just wanted to make sure that I put that in there. What that means is if guys are not emotional and talking to their friends and everything else, it's not just that it's a social thing. It's that women find that undesirable in men as well. So they summarize here, compared to women, men learn at an early age to not express vulnerability to other people, and as a result we disclose less, which leads them to receive less emotional support. That's going to be one of the main factors that we look at here. And women leaving relationships and leaving marriages at a far higher clip than men is that emotional support that they receive. Let's scroll down here a couple more pages. A little bit too far. Men suffering more from relationship ends because they experience a steeper decrease in emotional exchange and therefore need fulfillment. And that's where that social support and the family support comes in. In fact, I'll put this image up here right now, and I'll probably refer to it again in just a few moments. But when women have all of these different sources of support and people listening to them, validation that they can go to, it means that they have less need from the man when they exit a relationship or a marriage. So for guys, when they put all of their eggs into her, sounds funny to say, no euphemism here, but when guys put all of their faith and trust in their communication into the woman, that's where a lot of this comes to fruition and becomes an issue. Men experience a sharper decrease in their emotional exchanges. So let's continue on to the next page. So they say that men therefore should typically expect and reap more benefits upon entering the relationship, right? So when we talk about getting into a relationship, men do it because they have far fewer emotional and social supports, that they have that one woman now that they expect to provide for them, that they are much more willing to engage and to anticipate and to work toward a romantic relationship, because comparatively that's a lot more valuable to men than it is to women. Men tend to believe a romantic relationship is more central to their well-being, right? Again, maybe it's just, again, a simple case that men have fewer resources or social supports, as it were. Men are also more likely to believe in love at first sight, to idealize their partners, and to believe that no barriers is too strong to get in the way of love. And this is the warning I want to give you guys. Do not think that one woman is going to save you. Don't believe things like no barrier is too strong to get in the way of love. You have very, very different feelings than she does. You are entering this exchange, this meeting early on with very different expectations, supports, and a lot of other things. You cannot control how she feels about you, I guess is what I want to say. And here we see 61% of single men, but only 38% of single women, this was just a few years ago, reported that they were looking for a romantic relationship. So men are, in fact, looking for relationships at a higher rate than women are. So this goes back to debunking some of those myths that men don't want to commit. Men are not looking. There is an overwhelming amount of literature that supports that men are looking for romantic committed relationships at a higher rate than women are. That reporting here is from 2021. Young and middle-aged adults say the same thing, and even older men. This says widowed older men compared to widowed older women report about twice as much willingness to date and remarry. So at the younger age, all the way up through widowhood and older age, we consistently find that men are more than women looking to get into romantic relationships. Men's relatively greater willingness to relinquish their independence even. Men are more willing to give up some of their autonomy, some of their independence than are women. This appears to be from, I don't see a year on this immediately, but I would guess that that's becoming more and more true. Women are more likely, I believe, and I don't have anything to support this empirically right now, but increasingly women are less likely or willing to give up their autonomy, their independence. They're craving it these past 10, 15 years. So men on average reporting having fallen in love faster and more often. Men tend to fall in love more often than women do. Men also tend to report a higher incidence of unreciprocated love. And this is where the friend zone comes in. Again, because we don't have as many supports from family and work and social things and neighbors and people that we can confide in. We don't have as much as them. So women can go get that from just about anywhere. Us guys, we are very limited. That's why we get the unreciprocated love. That's where we get the friend zone. Women don't need it like we do. They don't need it from us like we need it from them. Hopefully maybe that's a little bit better way to say it. Let me scroll down here a few more. I don't know how much through all of these I should go for the sake of time. Men are less likely to end romantic relationships compared to women. We all know that, right? Appears to be direct benefits on men's health. So being in a relationship, in marriage in particular, I would say, men are receiving benefits in their health. And you know, when I came across this, I wanted to think, okay, well, we know and we say all the time that men who are married have greater health outcomes, that lower cancer rates, all heart attacks, cardiovascular issues, or whatever the case might be. And as I was reading this, I was thinking, well, shit, if you would if you would stop leaving us and divorcing us, we'd still be in a relationship. We'd still be married. That's why we do these things, because we understand the health benefits. But when you keep leaving us, when you keep divorcing, and then you say the single guys, the divorced guys, the guys that aren't married are having all of these health benefits, we know that. I just think it's a bit of a paradox. I don't know why I'm laughing about it, because it's not real funny, but it kind of is. Men benefit more from relationships due to their lower support they receive from friends and family. Oh, this one I thought was interesting. So cohabitation with a partner, right? So I don't know if this was specifically about unmarried couples, but living with a partner and marital status will negatively affect to men's but not women's levels of depressive symptoms. So men who are cohabitating and are married have reduced depressive symptoms, stress, and loneliness. Whereas when women are in those situations, when they are cohabitating or married, those things are pretty much the same, regardless if they're cohabitating or married, or if they're not, right? So we have those benefits for men that we experience, but not for women. And again, it all comes back to they have all of these other supports, and we put everything into that relationship and use her as our one level of support, or our main level. Again, all of this is typical, let me say, right? Obviously, we know that circumstances are different for different people. Let me skip through. Here's one that I really wanted to, what was this? Yeah, here's one. I know it's going to be a little small on the screen here, but let me read it for you. This one, so we've heard all over that women initiate most of divorces, right? And usually what we hear is somewhere right around 70%, 65, 70%, 75%, something like that. Here they're citing around 70%, with the remaining divorce cases being equally split into mutual initiation and initiation by the husband. So what this is telling us is that when we talk about the 70% rate of divorces that come from women, there are another 15% that are mutual, in which both husband and wife are like, you know what, let's just stop doing what we're doing. Let's go on about our business. But only 15% are initiated by men. So when we look at the 70%, it's not that 30%, on the other hand, are initiated by men. Some of those are mutual decisions. And men accounting for only 15% of initiated divorces. So listen, when you're having these conversations with people and they bring up divorce rates and who's doing it and everything, maybe one of the things, grab this and you can go to the original source and say, actually, there's data showing that men initiate only 15%. Men typically remain emotionally attached longer, so they have a harder time after the breakup. 40% of men, something popped up over here, 40% of men, but only 20% of women report feeling lonely during the year out of their divorce, right? So men suffer more. Let me come back here and pull up a couple of other notes. That's enough of that article. We got the picture there, but definitely get yourself a copy, read through it, and send me an email, something like that. I'd love to know your thoughts. But here's a couple of things that I wanted to go over. The evidence from this article shows that compared with women, obviously men tend to seek romantic relationships more strongly. They benefit more from being in a relationship. They initiate breakups at a substantially lower rate. They suffer, pardon me, they suffer more after breakup or dissolution. So there is every reason for men to stay in marriages and relationships, and that's why they rarely leave, or they rarely file for divorce. And for all of those reasons, that's why women do. That's why she will leave you. Men, realize this. She doesn't need you. She can get everything you have from somebody else right now, or in 5 minutes. You are going to have to either really expand your social circles or lower your guards, your walls, something like that, if you expect to have the supports that women can have in a matter of seconds. That's why she leaves. So here's a couple of things. Why she leaves you. She has more support outside of you. She has lower dependence on romance. The relationship doesn't help her like it helps you, guys. She doesn't get as much benefit out of it. There's the health benefit from staying. That's why guys stay. Women, and by the way, this was not in my notes, but women have all of the hospitals. I've covered this before. There are 0 hospitals in the United States that are men's hospitals. There are dozens that are women's hospitals, let alone the specialty clinics and things like that, right? So women have everything that they need. They don't need anything from us. It's much more difficult for us to get those supports, whether it's to sit down and talk about our fears in a relationship or health problems, or to get the health, a lot of the health services that we need. And of course, better post-breakup recovery. She knows that if or when she leaves, she will have all of the support she needs, as I said a moment ago, and almost on demand. She doesn't need you for any social or emotional support. She's already got it. And this is another, wrapping up here in just a moment, point that I wanted to come back to is that this is just what women do. They don't just file for divorce or initiate divorce 70% of the time. It's what women do. So as I was kind of going through this, I started to think, well, man, maybe we should just accept it and that it's not going to change. And once we understand why this happens and that we can't change it, how does that change then our outlook on marriage? Let me know what it does for you and your outlook. And if anybody out there is single, thought about married, maybe you're about to get married, what does this do to your perceptions of the longevity and the success of a marriage? But this is just something that they do. And one of the things I like to tell people is once we can anticipate things and understand why they happen, we get far less upset when they do happen, right? If we know that something has a 90% chance of happening, we don't get blindsided when it does happen, or we can prepare even better to help it not to happen, whatever event it might be. In this case, divorce, knowing what we know now, how can we prepare to make the marriage successful or the relationship in itself? And here's one final point that I wanted to make. A 70-30 split in divorce initiation, or more likely a 70-15 split in initiation, can't simply be waved away with lines like, oh, he was bad. He was this, he was that. He didn't know how to express himself. No, listen to me. If they're going to leave, they're going to leave anyway. They don't need for you to be a bad person. And as we saw in that beginning clip,
especially when you married to like a seemingly like good guy, like one that don't really do, things wrong, or don't really give you a quote unquote like a reason to leave, even when they give you reasons to leave.
They will leave the good ones because they can. It's like the old adage. I don't know if people say this anymore, but we used to say it all the time when I was a kid. It's like the same old adage. Why do women leave marriages? It's the same reason that dogs lick their balls, because they can. Women leave because there is nothing stopping them from doing it. So yes, they will leave the good ones, and this is why. They don't lose anything or nearly as much when they leave. So overall, men and women appear to relate to romantic attachment in very different styles, very different ways. Men are more dependent on the relationship itself for intimacy, for identity, for social and emotional support, and even for health benefits. And meanwhile, women appear more willing to end relationships when the relationship no longer serves them. They can go get whatever you're giving them someplace else, as I said, almost on demand. So this entirely, at least for me, but you tell me what you think, debunks the drunk, abusive, lazy husband who has an expiration date. It is simply not complete. This, again, tells us that women are going to do it regardless of whether you are a good guy, a bad guy, or anything in between. As always, let me know what you think. Be careful out there, guys. I'll be back soon.